What's up, everybody? I'm David Hain. Welcome to episode number 162 of the A to D From Addict to Disciple podcast. If you enjoy this podcast, please like, subscribe, follow, and share the link with your friends. Really, can you do me a favor and get 2 friends to listen to this episode if you like it, and then chat with them about it? If you'd like to get our curriculum, you can get the paperback or ebook of From Ashes to Destiny on Amazon. When we come back, we'll get into this episode entitled Voices in My Head. Welcome back to episode 162 of the A to D From Addict to Disciple podcast entitled Voices in My Head. I'm doing this episode because of feedback that I got from episode 152 on taking thoughts captive. So if you haven't listened to that episode, you might want to, either before or after you listen to this one. And the feedback in particular that I got said, David, I've worked on the suggestions from that episode and that helped. Thanks. But how do I silence the voices in my head? They do go quiet when I take them home, to their home. As I've worked in recovery and addiction all these years, one of the common themes of the people that I work with is the voices in their head that keep pushing them to use again. And this actually is in the first story of the first chapter of our curriculum, From Ashes to Destiny. So if you want to know more about it, go back to that story also. And there's a couple of themes that really show how people do use in their addiction in response to the prodding their voices or trying to quiet them. So the first is to look at, the only time that addicts seem to be able to quiet the voices or silence the voices is when they go use. It's the only way that they can escape the chaos that haunts them every day in addiction. The drugs or alcohol bring relief from the torment of the voices. The problem is that when we do that, we're only temporarily numbing or muting the voices. And as soon as the effect of the drug wears off, the voices are loud and clear and often meaner than ever. And the second theme that I've seen is that the voices actually get louder, stronger, and more demanding when addicts take steps towards ending their use or starting a detox or recovery program. It's like the voices have a territory, a home that is the streets, the bush, the abando, the crack house, the shooting gallery, wherever. And when they realize that you're going to try to cut back on your use or stop altogether, they start screaming because they don't want to lose their spot. And so it's really the same for addicts caught in the snare of the addiction to pornography also. It's more like though the voices have a time rather than a place that they become active. And often it's late at night when everyone in the house has gone to sleep that the voices start wooing their magnetic draw to the computer or the phone screen. And it reminds me of the song The Freaks Come Out at Night by Houdini. As you listen to the lyrics of the chorus, hear it as the voices come out at night rather than the freaks. Here's a bit of the lyrics. Discos don't open till after dark, and it ain't till 12 till the party really starts. And I always had to be home by 10, right before the fun was about to begin. Crowds of people lined up, inside and out. Just one reason, to rock the house. But in the daytime, the streets was clear. You couldn't find a good freak anywhere, 'cause the freaks come out at night. The freaks come out at night. So, how do we stop the voices in our head? For me, it boils down to one key area, and that is that the voices take advantage of the fact that we're living in the past and dealing with shame and guilt and remorse, or we're living in the future and dealing with hopelessness or helplessness. So the challenge is to stay in the present. How do we stay in the present? Those of you who've been with me for a while in these podcasts or have worked through the From Ashes to Destiny curriculum are aware that I place a lot of emphasis on not neglecting our five senses. My suggestion has often been to make sure that you do not neglect any of your senses and the enjoyment that they can bring for more than 1 or 2 days in a row. Because if you do, it's normal then to seek any way to satisfy that sensory deficit. For today's episode, I want to look at a way we can use staying in touch with our senses as a fabulous tool at any moment in time to bring us back to the present. To set this up, I'll look at an answer that I found on Quora, and this was written by Andreas Hadjimitsis from Cyprus, who was answering the question, how can I get the voices in my head to shut up? The answer is simple, but it takes effort and persistence. But it's the only way to make it shut up, according to Andreas. And he goes on to say, all you need to do is, once the voice starts, ignore and focus actively on your environment and your five senses. Ground yourself, as some people refer to this. Observe your five senses and focus on them and on what you're actually doing at the moment. For example, if you're dishwashing, focus your sight on the dishes. Feel the water running. Focus your hearing on the sounds. If you're eating something, focus on the taste, smell, texture, view, etc. of the food that you're eating, even if it is something very boring. Can you see that when we're in the moment, the voice is silent? Its whole purpose is to distract us from being in the moment. Okay. So how do we apply this stay in the moment by focusing our senses? Well, at any time, all of us can stop wherever you are. Just stop what you're doing and think about and just focus on what's around you. So if we think of the five senses, you can just stop right now as I'm talking and say, what are five things you see? Look around you wherever you're hearing this. What are four things that you can touch, and what's the feel? What are three things that you can hear? What are two things that you can smell? And one thing that you can taste? The order that I put these in is not important, and you can rearrange them in any way you want based on where you're at. Sometimes we can hear more things than we can touch and things like that. So it's not important to get them in the exact same order. But to be able to go through a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And that totally gets our mind and our thoughts and our vision and our hearing and all of our senses into the present. Just this week I did this with a friend as we were out for supper together. So it was easy to say, what are 5 things you can see? What are 4 things you can hear? As we got down the list, there was only one smell that he had, but that's okay. Again, it's not about the numbers. It's about connecting yourself to your senses in the present moment. Trust me, when you do that, the voices inside your head will be silenced because you're focused on the present. It's important to learn when our thoughts take us out of the present and give power to the voices inside our head also. From an old Western TV show called Rawhide, Clint Eastwood, playing the role of Rowdy Yates, said one time, and I quote, "Moonbeams and dreams cause much more trouble than they're worth." He said this to describe how that quiet time in the evening on the wide open range allowed the voices inside his head to remind him how much he was missing in life and family by being a cowboy and always roaming around. So I want to urge you to be aware of the places of quiet for you that have often backfired, that they've given space for the voices in your head to speak up, rather than space for you to quiet them. And if that fits, then change that approach to your quiet time and your quiet spaces. And also take a bit of control if you're going back to that quiet time by doing the 5 senses exercise that I just shared. And I like what Ms. Moem said in a poem, That Little Voice. And I'll paraphrase. The message was, don't let the voice inside your head be the boss of opportunities lost. And I think that fits especially at that quiet time approach. We're going there to find opportunities, but when we can't still ourselves and be in the moment, be in the present, we lose opportunities. I'd like to close with another poem, and this one is by Caitlin Renee, entitled Voices in My Head. Remain silent, remain unheard. Do not speak, no, not a word. For if you do, they will appear, these voices that I can hear. I will try to keep a smile, but the truth is, I've been hurt a while. Hello, dear, they seem to say. I hear them. We've come back. Now time to pay. Shaw, that's deep. For many of us, we've been hurt a while, and that gave birth to these voices inside our head, and we can ignore them for a while, but when they come back, they often want payment. They want a part of our soul. They want a part of our time. They want a part of our life. And they want to bring death into our relationships and things like that. So remember, the voices in your head can be like a loan shark, just lurking for that moment to say, it's time to pay. So I think we all can realize that it's not time to pay. It's time to silence the voices in our head. Thanks for listening to this episode of the A to D From Addict to Disciple podcast. If you'd like to join an online group or get one-on-one counseling to help you silence the voices in your head, please message me on the link in this podcast or by email at davidfromatod@gmail.com, or you can go to my website www.fromatod.org and click on the contact page. You can keep in touch with what we're doing in From A to D by following me on Instagram at David from A to D. For our Spotify listeners, you can leave your comments by clicking on the link they provide in that platform. Tune in Monday for our next episode, and as always, stay safe and stay strong.